Welcome to The Power and the Pain, where your past isn't your prison.
It's the fuel for your purpose.
I'm Greg Pihs, combat veteran, NLP trainer, and your guide to turn trauma into triumph. This is The Power and the Pain. Let's go.
Welcome back to The Power and the Pain, and this week, I'm your special guest again. Next week, I actually do have a really cool guest for you guys, just a little teaser for you. I'm actually bringing on a fellow hypnotist next week. Woo! This week, I am your guest, and we're talking a little bit more about archetype intelligence and judgment. Dun, dun, dun. Judgment. We all judge others. Except for you guys, right? Because you never do, or me. I don't either. But everyone else, they judge, and I know because I was judging them and I saw them judging. So we judge others, and most of the time, what I found in my experience is we are not consciously aware of how much we judge others. Is if I asked most people, do you judge it? So I know I don't judge people. I don't judge. They can be however they are. We kind of unconsciously do this judgment piece. And it plays out because we think to ourselves like, I'm not judging them. They're wrong. They shouldn't have done that. That's just a fact. I would never do that. No, you'd have to be them to do that. You'd have had to live their life to do that. You see, but we're basing a judgment to even declare something as in right or wrong. Okay? We are constantly forming judgments for other people. And I heard a quote one time. It's inside of How to Win Friends and Influence People, a book by Dale Carnegie. If you've never read that book, it's an exceptional book. In my opinion, it's the single best manuscript ever written on how to treat other humans. It's a pretty powerful statement. I've read a lot of books. That book is utterly exceptional. There's a quote in that book, and he says, we should not judge others, for we are no different than they are under other circumstances. And it's hard for us to digest that. But when we look at the 5 archetypes, and again, when we think archetype, what is an archetype? We can think archetype, we can think identity. There's 5 different identities that we may grow through during our life. And of all these 5 different identities, we have a different level of capacity inside of them as we expand, ascend, and grow through our journey. So if someone, by the way, these identities, like me and you as a human, we are limitless. We are not to be put in a box. We are absolutely incapable of being quantified. We are truly infinite. So we cannot be quantified as an energy spirit, okay? However, as a physical body, your physiology, your 3D experience on this world, we can begin to quantify. There are 5 archetypes or 5 identities that we will experience during our time on this earth. And as we experience these identities or archetypes, we get exposures with them. We see other people that have these type of identities, the warrior, the ruler, the achiever, the ghost, the peacekeeper. As we get exposures and experiences with these identities, somewhere along the way, 7 of 14 to be specific, we begin modeling different archetypes or identities. And we're looking for an identity or an archetype that allows us to protect ourselves in this 3D experience. We are limitless, but in this 3D world, we have certain limits, right? We can't jump off of the earth. Gravity has a little bit of limitations for us in this 3D experience. However, our energy, our spirit cannot be contained by this earth or gravity, okay? So in this 3D experience in our body, we have limitations, if you will. We have certain limitations, okay? And we adopt an identity based on what we think is going to preserve our safety through this 3D experience. Now, sometimes, and we talked about on the last episode, sometimes the first identity we adopt, we just bear hug that thing, we wrap our arms around it, and we take that thing all the way to the grave. And these people, we know them, will say, that's just who I am, that's who I always been. I ain't changed, and I ain't about to change. They found the single identity that they feel works for them. They built a protection layer around it, and they are not changing. That's who they are. They're allowed to, by the way. Why not? Other people, we go through, we take on that identity, that first identity we talked last week. It usually happens somewhere between the age 25 and 35. We have fully secured an identity of who we are. And we go through life, and for other people that don't take that single identity all the way to death, we notice other identities in other people's lives and things that they have that we would have desire for. They may be tangible or non-tangible. So it might be they have more peace or more joy or more love or more connection, or maybe it's physical. They have a boat and I want a boat. They have a big house and I want a big house, right? So then I start looking at what are they doing differently? And I start paying attention to what is the identity that they own. Not consciously, this isn't happening, but unconsciously. And then we begin modeling the new identity. And if we continue that journey, we'll then adopt a new identity. And then we'll create the things that we wanted in our life, that identity allowed us to create, that the old identity was holding us back from. And for some of us, we'll go on in life and we'll notice there's more. And we'll ascend to a new identity. But at any given time, we're predominantly operating from one of these archetypes or one of these identities. And inside of that identity or archetype, there's something about that archetype that is most important to you, and no other identity will ever get to surpass that identity's importance level while you're operating from that archetype. So for example, if we're in the warrior archetype, this is about self-expression. This is about conquering. This is about me going out and taking up space, allowing myself to be seen, to be heard, speaking up for myself. And while I'm in my warrior archetype or identity, nothing is going to be more important than me. For example, I've said for years in my warrior archetype, which some people enjoyed and some people made them uncomfortable. I said for years, in my house, I come first. Metaphorically speaking, if there's one bit of food left, I get that one bit of food because I will go out and provide more food. If I no longer have energy, I am no longer able to provide. So in that situation, it's really about if there was one bit of food left, even when I was in my warrior archetype, there's an exceptional chance my wife and kids would be eating it before I would. Okay. But what I'm getting at is in that warrior archetype, I'm the most important. Even it doesn't mean if I'm in warrior, it does not mean that I will not take care of others. But others come after I know that I am capable of taking care of them because I've taken care of myself. Whereas if I was in a peacekeeper archetype or identity, it would be about sacrificing self for the community. Is everyone okay? It's not important about me and what I want and what I need. I'm willing to, I have the desire to sacrifice for those around me. What do you guys need? I'm no longer the highest priority. So if you were in your peacekeeper archetype, keep in mind, if you're in your peacekeeper archetype, that does not mean that you cannot speak up for yourself. Remember, we talked about the warrior. The warrior speaks up for himself. That does not mean he will not take care of other people. If you're in your peacekeeper, that means you take care of others first. It does not mean you won't take care of yourself. So as a peacekeeper, You would sacrifice for those around you first. Once everyone else was taken care of, a peacekeeper is also capable of speaking up for themselves. So then if a peacekeeper saw a warrior maybe lead with a little bit extra assertiveness or dominance, maybe something they said or how they said it or something they did, the peacekeeper might see that as rude, disrespectful. And the peacekeeper might say, I get speaking up for yourself. I get taking up space. I do that too. But I would never put myself before the other people in the room. No, you wouldn't. You're a peacekeeper, not a warrior. At least in this chapter. You are infinite, right? But you're currently operating from peacekeeper. By the way, listener, that doesn't mean you're a peacekeeper, just metaphorically speaking. If that person's a peacekeeper, of course they would not do what the other person's doing. But in our mind, we have rationalized this. I'm not judging them. That's wrong. It's okay to speak up for yourself, but I would never go to the level that they went to. No, not as a peacekeeper. If you allow yourself to continue to ascending, eventually you'll find yourself in the warrior archetype. This is part of growth and ascension. We're going to, if we do the growth and ascension thing, we're going to go through all of the archetypes. The archetypes are a bit polarizing. If they weren't, we would just have one archetype. They're different. That's why there's 5 different ones. And you're only primarily operating out of one at a time. As you go, the further you go on your journey, the more capacity you build into all of them. And the more capacity you build in all of them, you're always primarily operating out of one. But if you have a bunch of capacity in the other 4, you have a ton of behavioral flexibility. You will not have to and must. There won't always be a right way and a wrong way. You'll realize there's a lot of ways to do something. And right and wrong are words that we hold static that are not static. Are we talking about legally right and wrong? Morally right and wrong? Spiritually right and wrong? Emotionally right and wrong? Which right and wrong were we talking about? Or just personally right and wrong? You see, as we go, the further we go on our journey, the more we create flexibility and capacity inside of all of the archetypes. How do we create that? Because we allow ourselves to ascend to the next identity. The ascension journey is so hard because every time we ascend to the last identity, we're afraid of all of our people saying, you changed. By the way, anytime anyone ever accuses you of that again, just look back at them and say, this is how you're going to say it. You're going to say, are you accusing me of growing? Are you accusing me of evolving? But we're so worried that people say, that's not who you are. You're being fake because you used to be a warrior and now you're being a peacekeeper. They don't know those words. They don't know the archetypes. But what they understand is you changed. Yes. But this is why ascension is so hard, because it requires us to die to ourselves over and over again. Our old identity must continue. We must continue to die to our old identity. We must continue to adopt a new identity. This is why ascension is so hard. This is why we get stuck. This is why we stay in that one lane. Or, as we spoke about last week, most people, majority, 25 to 35, they anchor in an identity, they stay there the rest of their life. The next vast majority, they evolve one time, and then they think, I did the thing. It's over. I did it. I died to self. I took on a new identity. I evolved. I grew. I did the work. And that's the second group. Most people, sadly, perish in that manner or level. And then there's no, like, to say third group. The third group is the group that just continues going. And it continues going. Where does it end? I'm not sure. Okay, listen, when you're in any archetype, you're currently in an archetype. When you're in that archetype, it is very easy to unconsciously judge the other 4 archetypes because they are polarizing to your current archetype. All 4 of them are not like vastly polarizing, but they are different or they would be the same. Because they are different and because you are choosing to operate outside of this archetype, listen to what I'm saying. I love you guys. Because the other 4 archetypes are different and because you're choosing to operate out of this archetype, unconsciously your neurology will say to you, those are wrong. Your neurology is doing this to protect you. If I don't think those are wrong, I might accidentally go and do those. If I go and do those, I won't be doing the archetype or the identity that I said I was. So it's a way of us unconsciously putting up a little fence so we don't accidentally just drift and like be anybody and go with the flow. And who am I? And I have no clue who I am. Sometimes I'm this and sometimes I'm that. We might know those people because they're like just going in and out of any archetype, but they're not able to build capacity because they're never spending any time in any given archetype. So you have to allow yourself to be where you are and realize there's no problem. You're just in the archetype you're in right now, and allow yourself to actually put up the fence against the other archetypes and say, no, this is who I am. And all of those archetypes are exactly fine just the way they are, because in the future I'll be in one of those archetypes. But right now I'm not. I'm in this archetype. This is who I am today. Don't worry about the word archetype. Your identity. This is who I am today. I'm not those things. Those things are not wrong. They're just not me. This is how we begin to release judgment. So judgment's coming from like, I don't want to be wrong. And I want to unconsciously protect myself so I don't accidentally just fall into that loop over there. And pride and ego. Listen, all of us believe that like, I'm not prideful. I'm not egotistical and so on and so forth. Well, I too am great at humility. So we all have a pride and we all have an ego, and it's a good thing to have ego and pride, because if you had no pride or no ego, I could never work with you because you would just accept anything and do anything and nothing would matter. Pride in our work is what allows us to do a good job, okay? But we need to check our pride. We need to check our ego, because it's pride and ego that unconsciously, I love you guys, right? I'm on the journey with you. So when I call these things out, like like I'm with you, right? Know that you're in great company. We don't want to be wrong. If I'm wrong, like people, I won't be worthy. I won't have friends. So I want to be right. So if I'm right and those 4 are different, unconsciously, that must mean they are wrong. I'll prove it. Here's a list of reasons why the ghost is wrong. Here's a list of reasons why the warrior is wrong. Here's a list of reasons why the ruler is wrong. Here's a list of reasons why the achiever is wrong. They think this, but that doesn't work because they don't know this thing, which is the thing that I know because I'm doing it right. We unconsciously do this and we say, it's not judgment. I'm just stating facts. What triggered you to do so? And why'd you stop stating facts? There's more facts to be stated. Do you see what I'm getting at when I ask that question? What is the purpose of said facts if they're not a judgment? Why did you pick those facts to state, and why didn't you state additional facts? Why was it important to make sure you stated only those facts? And the answer is, remember, you're in good company. Love you guys. The answer is to satiate ego. I stated those facts so that I could feel good about making the decision to choose this identity in this chapter, so that I can feel like I've chosen the right identity. You did. In the next chapter, you're going to access one of those other right identities. We need to make sure we don't label it with a ton of caution tape that instead of saying the word caution, it says wrong, no, unsafe, don't do it, bad. Because when it is time for us to evolve again, we won't do that because it's wrong, it's bad, it's not safe, it's dangerous, caution, don't go over there, I don't want to. I do this for a living because it's my passion. I work with people through trauma, identity, mindset, emotional intelligence. And it is absurdly common when people are ready for the next breakthrough. They'll tell me about all the things they can't do, don't want to be, how they don't want to be wrong. But they'll tell me about, it's unconscious for them. They'll tell me about the identity or archetype that they want to get into, but the only way they know to tell me about it is, well, I don't want to be greedy. I don't want people to, I'm not trying to just be like egotistical. Well, I don't want people to have to just listen to me. Well, I don't want to like have like I'm not trying to be a billionaire or like one of those like evil corporate mega entities. I'm like, oh, so you'd like to be an achiever and you forgot that you've unconsciously judged the hell out of it, labeled it so that you were right for not doing it, so that you didn't feel bad for not being in the achiever archetype. Now you have desire to operate in the achiever archetype, but you unconsciously cannot forget all the bad things you said about the achiever archetype. And self has no enemy against self. Self doesn't want to be bad. Self knows it's bad because self said it was bad. So it wasn't like I heard it. It wasn't like I'm not sure. It wasn't like it could be bad. I told me it's bad. What's wrong with me? Why am I wanting to do bad things? This is that chaos chapter we get into when we, and by the way, if you ever had this chaos chapter, good news, you're being called into growth. See, if you had no desire to grow in archetype intelligence, if you had no desire to expand your capacity and create behavioral flexibility, you would just be content where you are. And by the way, there's not a problem with that. Who am I to say anyone needs to do anything through archetype intelligence? What is the problem with someone owning an identity by the age of 30 and then choosing to protect that identity the rest of their life? What's the problem with it? It's not how I'm choosing to live my life. But notice how there's a lack of judgment for people that choose to live in just one identity. Guess what? Greg's all about this growth, ascension. Let's go do the thing. Yeah. I'm only, what age am I? I'm only 41. I'm about to be 41. I'm only 41. Like I still got a little bit of runway left here. Okay. I'm still going to hook and jab for another 20 years or so. But look, when I'm 65, I might be ready to protect the identity that I have at that point in time. I don't know. Maybe I'll still be growing and evolving. I don't know. But my point is, if I decide that like, hey, I love the person that I became, this is who I want to finalize myself as. Well, then at that time, I want my neurology to be open to allow me to do that. So people that live their whole life in one identity, one archetype, I think they are beautiful for doing that. I think it's an amazing thing to do. I think it's a great thing to do. I think it's just as great of a thing to do as it is to continue to evolve over and over again and be vulnerable and allow yourself to be uncomfortable so that you can ascend, create capacity and behavioral flexibility. I think it's as beautiful to do that as it is to protect a single identity. And I think both are pretty hard to do. If you want to accept it as hard. I think both are equal effort. I think both are fun to do, if you want to accept it as fun. But whichever way you go, it's going to require effort. If I adopt warrior and I want to protect the rest of my life and only live as the warrior, I am constantly going to have to shift the environment around me so that I don't have to shift. That's going to take an exchange of energy. If I want extreme behavioral flexibility so that I can shift with the environment around me, it's going to take a lot of exchange of energy. And I think both are right and neither are wrong. You may not be judging people in the sense of gossiping. You may not be judging people in the sense of gossiping. You are allowed to have boundaries in your life. You're allowed to not tolerate things. You're allowed to not accept things. It's your choice. It's your freedom and autonomy. Take agency in your life. Set boundaries. Determine what you'll tolerate and what you're willing to accept and not willing to accept. And even if you are not willing to tolerate the behavior and you will not accept the behavior and the behavior gets a boundary, maybe a consequence, maybe a proximity limit, I still love them for who they are, because if I am limitless, there's no way that I couldn't do what they're doing. It could be me under other circumstances. And if I think to myself, I hope I never behave that way, I can immediately have gratitude that if I lived their life right now, I'd be living that way. So I can have immediate gratitude that I have my life. And I'm in the chapter that I'm in, and I'm making the decisions that I'm making. Immediate gratitude. So I may not tolerate or accept the behavior. I may implement a boundary on the behavior. There may be a consequence on the behavior. But I look at that person with love because I know I could be you. I won't allow you to be you around me. I won't allow you to do you to me. But I could be you, and I love you exactly as you are over there. Set the boundary. Decide what you will tolerate. Just realize that you literally, unless you're ready to limit yourself, if you're willing to accept that you're limitless, then forevermore we must realize whatever anyone else does, I may and could do myself. I'm thankful to have the wisdom, the vision, and the discernment to make better decisions. But it's not off the table. I could do it in other circumstances. I'm so thankful I've created a life in which I have this set of circumstances. If you've been following me for a couple of days, you definitely heard me say this before. The example I give to people is, would you eat lunch out of a trash can? All my sane listeners are like, no. And then I just give the example. If you were 11 years old with me when I had ran away and you needed to eat, you would have enjoyed that meal out of the trash can with me. Mind you, when I very, very, very literally ate out of trash cans on more than one occasion. I didn't know. I'm like 10, 11, 12 years old. I had no clue how to take care of myself. I would go to like fast food places and things like that. And I would dig through the trash and I would find like half-eaten sandwiches and such where people may have eaten half of it and then wrapped it back up in the sandwich wrapper and threw it out. And this was like gold to me. I did not care about saliva and things of that nature. This was protected good food. And if you lived the life I lived and you were with me under those circumstances, another thought wouldn't have crossed your mind when I said, want to join me at the trash can for lunch. If I didn't give you the context of that story, it would have been easy to say, people who eat out of trash cans are fucking disgusting. right now, though, if you have empathy, that kind of hurts to even hear those words when I just told you my story. Do we want to call 10, 11-year-old Greg disgusting? I don't want to call 10, 11-year-old Greg disgusting. I think he was powerful. I think he was adaptive. I think he was incredible. Notice how we can easily cast judgment from our perspective. The easiest way to release judgment is just to imagine what it would be like to be them and to see their behavior from their perspective. If you see their behavior from their perspective, remember, self has no enemy against self. So if you've seen them as if you were themself, see yourself as if you were themself or their self. If you were to see yourself in that situation, you would have no judgment because the behavior that they're displaying would serve you as you're seeing yourself as themself. It would make complete and total sense that they do that behavior. That behavior serves them. That makes sense. Self has no enemy against self. That doesn't mean I'm tolerating it, but I get it for you. I get it. And I can have empathy with you. Like as I give the consequence, like my son. Like my son Xander, when he gets a consequence, sometimes he makes a mistake. And it's like, I get it. Like sometimes he does like goofy things that like, I'm like, man, like I want to give you a pass because I want to laugh. I get it so much. Like I would have done what you did. Like I literally would have done what you did. And I need to, it's imperative in my soul that I allow you to learn and grow with empathy. Here is your consequence. This is how we release judgment. Like I would have done exactly what you did. And I need to protect myself. I need a boundary. Here's the boundary. Here's the limit. Here's the consequence. This is what allows us to truly release judgment. And when we release judgment, our journey of growth and ascension becomes easier and easier. The more judgment we release, the easier it gets. The easier it gets, the faster we evolve. The faster we evolve, the more peace we feel. Because we've released that loudest voice that we ever hear, our inner critic. Our inner critic only knows what to say inside based on what we say outside to others. By the way, you only know to say outside to others what was fed to you 0 to 7 inside. Not just 0 to 7, but those are the most predominant. Your inner critic, like you've probably heard this before, we would never ever allow another person to talk to us the way we talk to ourselves. It would be an immediate shut it down. We have that inner critic because that inner critic is us, and it heard us say all of these judgments. So the inner critic, I believe you. Okay, got it. So then we judge ourselves. I've said before, to the level at which you feel judged is the level at which you are judging others. Your inner critic is listening. Every time you judge, your inner critic says, okay, I believe you. Got it. This is right. That's wrong. Every time you behave in a way that's with the wrong, your inner critic, oh, you're fucking lazy. Oh, you can't do that. Oh, you're not doing that. Oh, this thing ain't being done. You're never going to make it. And then think about it, right? Not only is this things I say about other people, maybe to their face, maybe in my thoughts, and I don't say it out loud because I don't have the fortitude, maybe behind closed doors, maybe I journal it, right? Not only are these things I say about others, but if I think back to childhood, shit, these are the things that I heard. Simple shift, guys. When we want to judge others, truly allow yourself to imagine what it would be like if you were them. And if you truly allow yourself to do that, self has no enemy to self, you will then see why, if you were them, you would have chose this behavior as well. And how this behavior makes sense for them. I didn't say it was the best choice for their future, but it literally makes sense for them in this chapter. If you cannot get to a place in which you realize this makes sense for them, then understand you don't understand how this makes sense for them. But that's you with the not understanding. If I can access a place where I understand this makes sense for them, then I can apply the boundary or consequence with empathy. I get it. I could have been where you're at. I have empathy for you. I have gratitude for the life that I've created and that I'm not over there. I love you. I want good for you. Here's the boundary, not an option. This is going to allow your growth journey to truly take off because you're going to allow yourself access into the other identities or the other archetypes. You're going to create an increased capacity for yourself in each of the identities, which is going to give you the law of requisite variety. It is going to give you complete and total behavioral flexibility. And the person with the most flexibility always controls the outcome. All right, I told you guys I got a pretty cool guest on next week, so stay tuned. I'm bringing on a fellow hypnotist next week. Ooh, we're going to hypnotize you. I'm sure you guys heard me talk about before, all hypnosis is self-hypnosis. I'm excited to dive into that next week. So make sure you stay tuned next week. Make sure you like, subscribe, tell your friends so they can check out this episode, and we'll catch you next week.
If this hit you deep, trust that.
Your pain has power, and your story isn't over.
Follow, share, and send this to someone who you think might benefit.
I'm Greg, and this was The Power in the Pain. Keep stepping into your power.